In the beginning there is darkness, not the absence of light, but the primordial womb from which all consciousness emerges, the vast oceanic depths of the unconscious, where the soul dwells in its most authentic state. Here, in this sacred darkness, something ancient stirs. It is not hunger as the body knows it, not desire as the mind comprehends it, but a longing so profound that it predates language itself. This is the ache of the eternal self, that immortal essence within you that remembers what wholeness feels like, even when your conscious mind has forgotten. In the depths of your being, beneath the layers of conditioning and the carefully constructed narratives you tell yourself about who you are, this longing moves like a tide. It rises and falls with the rhythms of your deepest breathing, pulsing with the heartbeat of something far greater than your individual existence. Jung understood this primordial hunger as the soul's inherent drive toward completion, not the completion that comes from external acquisition, but the sacred reunification with aspects of itself that have been lost, forgotten, or never fully realized. It is the eternal self seeking its own reflection, recognizing that true wholeness can only be achieved through the mysterious alchemy of connection with another soul who carries the missing pieces of its own constellation. But this longing is not born of lack, as the ego would have you believe. It does not arise from emptiness or insufficiency. Rather, it emerges from the profound recognition that the individual soul, no matter how complete it may seem, is actually part of a greater tapestry, a cosmic dance of interconnected consciousness, where each soul holds fragments of the universal truth that can only be fully revealed through sacred encounter. In the depths of your unconscious, this longing manifests as a magnetic pull towards something you cannot name. It is the inexplicable attraction to certain faces in a crowd, the sudden recognition that strikes like lightning when you encounter someone whose presence seems to awaken something dormant within you. It is the force that draws you toward experiences, places and people that your rational mind cannot justify, but your soul knows are essential to your becoming. This is the shadow of incompleteness, not incompleteness as failure, but as the sacred design of consciousness itself. For if you were already complete in isolation, if your individual existence contained all the mysteries and truths of existence, there would be no need for the profound vulnerability of opening to another. There would be no necessity for the terrifying and exhilarating journey of allowing another soul to witness your depths and reflect back to you aspects of yourself you never knew existed. The longing in the depths is the soul's recognition that it is both utterly unique and fundamentally connected to all existence. It is the paradox of individuation, the process by which you become most fully yourself precisely through the sacred encounter with otherness. Your deepest self knows that it must both stand alone in its authenticity and reach across the void to touch another consciousness that mirrors its own eternal nature. This archetypal hunger lives in the realm of symbols and dreams, in the sudden tears that arise when you hear a piece of music that seems to carry the frequency of your own soul, in the inexplicable sense of homecoming you feel in the presence of someone you've just met, but somehow recognize from lifetimes of dreaming. It is the force that moves beneath all your seeking, all your restlessness, all your moments of profound loneliness, even when surrounded by others. In the darkness of the unconscious, this longing takes on mythic proportions. It becomes the search for the beloved, the quest for the golden fleece, the hero's journey toward the treasure that can only be found in the depths of the underworld. It is Psyche seeking Eros, Dante following Beatrice, the eternal masculine and feminine principles of consciousness reaching toward their sacred reunion. But the longing in the depths is not merely personal. It is archetypal, cosmic, part of the very fabric of existence itself. It is the universe's way of ensuring that consciousness continues to evolve, that souls continue to grow and transform through the sacred friction of authentic encounter. It is the magnetic force that draws together those who are meant to catalyze each other's becoming, who carry for each other the keys to doors that can only be opened from within. This hunger, this sacred ache, this primordial longing, it is not something to be satisfied or resolved, but something to be honored as the very mechanism by which the soul discovers its true nature. It is the compass that points not toward another person who will complete you, but toward the experiences and encounters that will awaken within you the recognition of your own completeness. In the depths, the longing knows what the surface mind cannot yet comprehend, that you are not seeking another to fill your emptiness, but to reflect your fullness. You are not looking for someone to heal your brokenness, but to witness your wholeness. You are not searching for completion, but for the sacred mirror that will show you the face of your own divinity. This is the beginning of all true meeting, not in the marketplace of the ego's desires, but in the oceanic depths where souls recognize their eternal kinship and their destined dance toward ever greater consciousness. Here, in the darkness before dawn, the longing stirs, and the universe begins to weave the synchronicities that will bring together those who are meant to remember, through each other, the truth of who they have always been. You walk through the crowded marketplace of human connection, your feet moving across stones worn smooth by countless souls who have passed this way before you. The air hums with the electricity of desire and need, thick with the perfume of possibility and the acrid scent of disappointment. Here, in this ancient bazaar of the heart, you wear a mask so skillfully crafted that you have forgotten the face beneath it. This is the realm of the persona, that elaborate costume of the psyche that Jung understood as both protection and prison. You have spent years fashioning this mask, polishing its surface until it gleams with the qualities you believe the world demands. It is beautiful, this false face you wear. It speaks in practiced tones, laughs at precisely the right moments, and displays emotions calibrated to create the desired effect. But beneath its porcelain perfection, something wild and authentic struggles to breathe. The persona whispers seductive promises as you move through the marketplace. Present yourself thus, it murmurs, and you shall be desired. Speak these words, and you shall be accepted. Hide these shadows, and you shall be loved. You have listened to this voice for so long that its counsel feels like wisdom, its guidance like truth. Yet with each interaction, each carefully choreographed encounter, you feel yourself growing more distant from the very connection you seek. Watch how the persona operates in this marketplace of hearts. It scans the crowd, not for genuine recognition, but for mirrors that will reflect its constructed image back with approval. It gravitates toward those who appreciate its performance, who applaud its careful presentation, who seem to confirm the validity of its elaborate disguise. This is not love. This is the ego's desperate hunger for validation, feeding on the drug of admiration, while slowly poisoning the wellspring of authentic connection. The relationships born from this masquerade are mirages in the desert of human longing. They shimmer with the appearance of intimacy, but when you reach toward them with your true self, your hand passes through empty air. The persona creates attractions built on projection rather than recognition, drawing you toward others who reflect your mask back to you rather than seeing through it to the soul beneath. You find yourself in conversation with another masked soul, two personas dancing an elaborate waltz of mutual deception. The words flow smoothly, each response carefully calculated to maintain the illusion of compatibility. You laugh at their jokes while your inner voice remains silent. They admire your accomplishments while your authentic dreams lie buried beneath layers of acceptable ambition. Together, you create a beautiful performance that neither of you truly inhabits. This is the cruel paradox of the persona's domain. The more successfully you present yourself as lovable, the more isolated you become from genuine love. The mask that was meant to attract connection becomes the very barrier that prevents it. You are seen, but not truly. You are desired, but not wholly. You are chosen, but only for the character you play, never for the complex truth of who you are. The persona feeds on external validation like a vampire feeds on blood. Each compliment, each expression of attraction, each sign of approval sends a surge of temporary satisfaction through your system. But this nourishment is hollow, requiring constant replenishment. The persona grows stronger and more demanding with each feeding, its appetite becoming increasingly insatiable. Soon you find yourself addicted to the very performance that separates you from authentic connection. In the marketplace, you encounter others who wear their own elaborate masks. There is the successful professional whose persona radiates competence and control, hiding the terrified child who fears being found inadequate. There is the spiritual seeker whose mask glows with enlightenment and compassion, concealing the angry human who judges and resents. There is the carefree rebel whose persona projects independence and authenticity, masking the frightened soul who desperately craves belonging. These personas recognize each other with a strange magnetism, drawn together by the unconscious hope that another's mask might somehow validate their own. They form relationships based on mutual admiration of each other's performances, creating elaborate theaters of connection where neither actor can step out of character without risking the collapse of the entire production. The persona's greatest fear is exposure, the terrifying possibility that someone might see through its careful construction to the vulnerable truth beneath. It builds walls of charm and accomplishment, deflects with humor and deflection, maintains distance through the very closeness it appears to offer. The more intimate a relationship becomes, the more frantically the persona works to maintain its facade, exhausting itself in the effort to keep the mask perfectly positioned. But there comes a moment in every soul's journey when the persona's tyranny becomes unbearable. The mask grows heavy, its edges cutting into the soft skin of authentic self-expression. The performance becomes a prison, and the applause from the audience begins to sound like the rattling of chains. This is the moment when the soul rebels against its own elaborate disguise, when the authentic self beneath the mask stirs and demands to be seen. The breakdown of the persona is both terrifying and necessary. It feels like death because, in a sense, it is. The death of the false self that has been mistaken for the true one. The relationships built on the persona's foundation begin to crumble, revealing their hollow nature. The admirers who loved your mask turn away when confronted with your authentic complexity. The connections that felt so solid dissolve when the performance ends. Yet in this dissolution lies the seed of genuine transformation. For it is only when the persona's illusions shatter that the possibility of authentic connection emerges. The soul that has been hidden beneath layers of acceptable presentation begins to stir, to stretch, to remember its own true nature. The voice that has been silenced by the persona's demands begins to whisper, then speak, then sing its own unique song. This is the beginning of the journey toward genuine intimacy, not the false intimacy of two masks admiring each other, but the raw, terrifying, beautiful intimacy of souls recognizing themselves in each other's authentic presence. It requires the courage to show up without the protective armor of the persona, to risk rejection in service of genuine connection, to choose truth over approval. The marketplace of the persona will always exist, its vendors calling out their promises of easy acceptance and painless connection. But once you have tasted the wine of authentic relationship, once you have known the deep satisfaction of being seen and loved for who you truly are, rather than who you pretend to be, the persona's offerings lose their power to tempt. You begin to see through the mirage, to recognize the difference between the shallow pools of ego gratification and the deep wells of soul nourishment. The mask begins to slip, not in defeat but in liberation, as you take your first tentative steps toward the terrifying and magnificent possibility of being genuinely, vulnerably, authentically yourself in the presence of another. You stand now at the threshold of a profound reckoning, where the carefully constructed edifice of your social self begins to tremble and crack. This is the moment when the soul, weary of its elaborate masquerade, calls forth something deeper than performance. It demands the raw, unvarnished truth of who you are beneath the layers of expectation and protective armor. The descent into authentic encounter is not a gentle slope, but a precipitous fall into the underworld of the psyche, where all your polished surfaces must be stripped away. Like Persephone's abduction into Hades, this journey downward feels initially like a violation of everything you have built to keep yourself safe. Yet within this apparent destruction lies the seed of the most profound transformation, the alchemical nigredo, the blackening that must occur before any true gold can emerge. You have lived so long behind the persona, that carefully crafted mask Jung described as the face we show the world, that you have perhaps forgotten the wild, untamed essence that pulses beneath. This persona is not evil. It serves a necessary function, allowing you to navigate the complex social world without exposing every raw nerve of your being. But when it becomes a prison rather than a tool, when you mistake the mask for your true face, the soul begins its rebellion. The call to authentic encounter arrives like a fever in the bones, an inexplicable restlessness that no amount of external success can satisfy. You find yourself standing before another person, perhaps a lover, a friend, or even a stranger, and suddenly the elaborate choreography of social interaction feels hollow and false. Something deeper stirs, a recognition that this moment offers a doorway into a more profound way of being, but only if you are willing to let the mask fall away. This is where the terror begins. To remove the persona is to expose the shadow, those aspects of yourself that you have spent a lifetime trying to deny or perfect away. The shadow contains not only your flaws and failings, but also your authentic power, your untamed creativity, your capacity for raw emotion and truth. It is the repository of everything you have been taught is unacceptable, and yet it holds the very essence of your aliveness. As you stand at this threshold, you feel the gravitational pull of the unconscious drawing you downward. This is not the comfortable descent of a planned journey, but the disorienting plunge of one who has lost their footing on familiar ground. The ego, that careful curator of your identity, protests violently. It whispers of shame, of rejection, of the terrible vulnerability that awaits you in the depths. Yet something stronger, the self perhaps, that deeper organizing principle of your being, knows that this descent is necessary. The underworld of authentic encounter is a place where words become inadequate and presence becomes everything. Here, beneath the level of conscious control, souls recognize each other through vibrations and energies that bypass the rational mind entirely. This is the realm of the archetypal, where you meet not just another person, but the eternal patterns of human connection that have played out across millennia. In this space of vulnerability, you discover that your deepest fears were actually guardians of your greatest treasures. The shame you carried about your neediness reveals itself as a profound capacity for intimate connection. The anger you tried to suppress emerges as a fierce protection of your authentic values. The sadness you attempted to transcend becomes the very gateway to compassion and empathy. The dissolution of the false self is perhaps the most terrifying experience the ego can undergo. It feels like death because, in a very real sense, it is. The carefully constructed identity that has carried you through life must be allowed to crumble, to decompose like organic matter returning to the earth. This is the nigredo of relationship, the dark night of the soul that precedes any genuine meeting of hearts. Yet within this darkness, something miraculous begins to occur. As your defenses crumble and your masks fall away, you discover that the other person is undergoing the same terrifying transformation. You are not alone in this underworld. You are met by another soul who has also chosen to risk everything for the possibility of authentic connection. Together, you create a sacred space where truth can be spoken and received without judgment. This is the paradox of authentic encounter. It requires the courage to be completely alone with your truth, while simultaneously opening to the truth of another. You must descend into the depths of your own psyche while maintaining the capacity to witness and hold space for someone else's journey into their own underworld. It is a dance of solitude and communion, of self-revelation and mutual recognition. The undefended space where real recognition becomes possible is not a place of comfort or safety in any conventional sense. It is a realm of constant movement and change where the ego's desire for control and predictability must be surrendered to the deeper wisdom of the soul. Here, you learn to trust the process of relationship as an ongoing creation rather than a fixed destination. In this space, you begin to understand that authentic encounter is not about finding someone who will complete you or fulfill your needs, but about discovering your own completeness through the mirror of another's presence. The other person becomes a sacred witness to your becoming, just as you become a witness to theirs. Together, you participate in the mysterious alchemy of human connection, where two individual souls create something greater than either could achieve alone. The descent into authentic encounter teaches you that vulnerability is not weakness, but the greatest strength the human heart can possess. It is the courage to show up as you are, without guarantee of acceptance or understanding. It is the willingness to be seen in your imperfection, to be known in your complexity, to be loved not despite your shadows, but because of your wholeness. This journey into the underworld of connection changes you at the cellular level. You can no longer pretend to be smaller than you are, nor can you inflate yourself beyond your true proportions. You have tasted the nectar of authentic meeting, and nothing else will ever satisfy in quite the same way. You have learned that real love, whether romantic, platonic, or familial, requires nothing less than the complete transformation of both parties involved. As you emerge from this descent, you carry with you the knowledge that authentic encounter is always available, but it requires constant vigilance against the ego's desire to return to the safety of the mask. The persona will always try to reassert itself, promising protection and predictability. Yet once you have experienced the intoxicating freedom of authentic connection, you know that no amount of safety is worth the price of returning to a life of elaborate pretense. In the liminal space where two souls draw near, there exists a moment of profound recognition that has nothing to do with the light we choose to project, and everything to do with the darkness we have spent lifetimes trying to escape. This is the shadow dance, that ancient archetypal encounter where we meet not the polished version of another person, but the raw, unintegrated aspects of ourselves reflected back through their being. The shadow, as Jung understood, is not merely the repository of our personal failures and moral shortcomings. It is the vast, fertile underworld of the psyche that contains everything we have rejected about ourselves, our unexpressed creativity, our wild instincts, our capacity for rage and passion, our deepest hungers and most primal fears. When we approach another soul with authentic intention, we inevitably encounter this shadow material, both our own and theirs, dancing together in the twilight realm of unconscious recognition. This recognition often arrives as a shock, a jolt, of uncomfortable familiarity that the ego immediately wants to reject. You see in the other person's eyes a quality that disturbs you, Perhaps their neediness triggers your own unacknowledged dependency, or their confidence illuminates your hidden grandiosity. The initial impulse is to judge, to distance yourself, to maintain the illusion that this unwanted quality belongs to them and not to you. But the shadow dance is far more sophisticated than simple projection. It is a sacred confrontation that tests the very foundation of any deep connection. The question it poses is not whether you can love the light in another person. That requires no particular courage or growth. The question is whether you can love what you have refused to acknowledge in yourself when it appears before you wearing another's face. This dance begins in the twilight realm of the psyche, that borderland between conscious and unconscious, where our deepest patterns play out, beyond the reach of rational control. Here, in this in-between space, you encounter the other person not as they present themselves, but as they truly are. A complex constellation of light and shadow, integration and fragmentation, beauty and brokenness. And in witnessing their wholeness, you are forced to confront your own. The shadow material that emerges in intimate encounter is often the very quality that drew you to the person in the first place. You are attracted to their confidence, only to discover that it triggers your own fear of claiming your power. You are drawn to their emotional openness, only to find that it illuminates your own defended heart. The shadow dance reveals that we are often most attracted to those who embody what we have disowned in ourselves. This recognition can feel like a cruel joke of the unconscious, as if the very thing you sought for healing becomes the source of your greatest challenge. Yet this is the genius of the shadow dance. It creates the exact conditions necessary for integration. By placing you in relationship with someone who embodies your disowned aspects, the psyche creates an opportunity for you to reclaim what you have rejected about yourself. The sacred confrontation of the shadow dance demands a radical shift in perspective. Instead of seeing the disturbing quality in the other person as something to be changed or avoided, you must learn to recognize it as a gift, a mirror reflecting back an aspect of yourself that is ready to be integrated. This requires tremendous courage, because it means abandoning the comfortable fiction that you are fundamentally different from those who trigger your judgment. In the shadow dance, true alignment is revealed to be not the meeting of two compatible, light bodies, but the integration of four distinct aspects: your light and shadow, and their light and shadow. The dance becomes a complex choreography of recognition, projection, withdrawal, and integration that can last for months or years. Each time you think you have fully seen and accepted the other person, a new layer of shadow material emerges, demanding deeper levels of self-awareness and compassion. The darkness that emerges in this dance is not malevolent but fertile. It contains the very qualities that, when integrated, will make you more whole, more authentic, more capable of genuine intimacy. Your disowned anger, when reclaimed, becomes healthy boundaries. Your rejected neediness, when embraced, becomes the capacity for vulnerable connection. Your hidden grandiosity, when integrated, becomes authentic self-worth. This process of shadow integration through relationship is perhaps the most challenging work the soul can undertake. It requires you to hold paradox, to love someone while simultaneously recognizing that they are triggering your deepest wounds. It demands that you take responsibility for your projections while also maintaining appropriate boundaries around genuinely problematic behavior. It asks you to embrace your darkness while not drowning in it. The shadow dance teaches that true intimacy is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of consciousness during conflict. When shadow material is activated between two people, the temptation is to flee or fight, to restore the equilibrium of the ego through distance or dominance. But the shadow dance invites a third option: to stay present with the discomfort and allow it to reveal its hidden wisdom. In this staying present, you begin to understand that the person before you is not your enemy but your teacher, not your problem, but your mirror. They are showing you aspects of yourself that you could not see alone. Their darkness illuminates your darkness, their light reveals your light, and in the interplay between these polarities, something new is born, a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. The shadow dance ultimately reveals that love is not about finding someone who matches your light, but about finding someone brave enough to dance with your darkness. It is about discovering that the very qualities you thought made you unlovable are actually the gateways to your greatest gifts. It is about learning that true alignment requires not the elimination of shadow, but its conscious integration. As you move through this sacred confrontation, you begin to understand that the shadow dance is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Each relationship becomes an opportunity for deeper self-knowledge, each conflict a chance for greater integration. You learn that the goal is not to eliminate your shadow, but to dance with it consciously, to let it inform and enrich your capacity for authentic connection. The shadow dance transforms both participants. Through the courageous act of seeing and accepting each other's darkness, you create a container strong enough to hold the full spectrum of human experience. You discover that love is not an emotion, but an activity, the ongoing practice of choosing to stay present with whatever arises, knowing that everything that emerges in relationship is sacred material for the soul's evolution. In the grand choreography of existence, there are moments when the universe pauses in its endless dance to orchestrate something extraordinary, a meeting that transcends the ordinary boundaries of chance and causality. When two souls, each having undertaken the profound work of inner transformation, stand ready to encounter one another, the cosmos itself becomes their matchmaker, weaving together a tapestry of meaningful coincidence that defies rational explanation. This is synchronicity in its purest form. Not the shallow coincidence that makes for amusing anecdotes, but the profound alignment of inner and outer reality that Jung recognized as the universe's own language. It is the moment when the linear progression of time seems to bend and curve, creating a sacred pause in which two prepared souls can find each other across the vast expanse of human experience. The synchronicity of first meeting arrives like a whispered secret from the depths of the collective unconscious, a recognition that what is about to unfold serves not only the two individuals involved, but the greater pattern of human evolution. The universe has been preparing this moment through 1,000 seemingly unrelated events, a missed train that leads to an unexpected encounter, a book that falls from a shelf at precisely the right moment, a wrong number that becomes the right conversation. You have been walking your path of individuation, perhaps for years, doing the slow, patient work of integrating your shadow, dialoguing with your inner figures, learning to distinguish between the voice of the ego and the deeper wisdom of the self. Unknown to you, another soul has been walking a parallel path, engaging in their own process of becoming whole. The universe, in its infinite patience, has been waiting for both of you to reach the precise degree of readiness necessary for authentic encounter. When the moment arrives, it feels both completely unexpected and utterly inevitable. You find yourself in a situation that your rational mind would dismiss as purely coincidental. Perhaps you both reach for the same book in a library, or find yourselves seeking shelter from the same sudden storm, or discover that you have been unknowingly following parallel paths that suddenly converge at a coffee shop, a conference, a chance encounter on a train platform. But something in the quality of this meeting feels different from ordinary social interaction. There is a thickness to the air, a sense that time itself has slowed to allow for deeper recognition. The conversation that follows carries an unusual weight, as if words are being spoken not just between two individuals, but between two aspects of the universal psyche, finally finding their way to each other. The synchronicity extends beyond the initial meeting into the fabric of the encounter itself. You discover that you have been reading the same obscure book, wrestling with the same existential questions, or dreaming similar dreams. The parallels in your journeys of self-discovery become increasingly apparent, not as mere coincidence but as evidence of the archetypal patterns that guide human development across individual lives. In this moment of first meeting, ordinary events become laden with significance. The song playing in the background carries lyrics that speak directly to your soul's condition. The number on the house where you meet holds personal meaning for both of you. The weather itself seems to reflect the emotional climate of your encounter. Perhaps the sun breaks through clouds at the exact moment of recognition, or rain begins to fall as you both acknowledge the depth of what you have found. The rational mind, that careful guardian of logical causality, stands amazed at the perfection of timing. Every delay in your respective journeys, every apparent detour or setback, suddenly reveals itself as necessary preparation for this moment. The relationship that ended 2 years ago, the job you lost, the city you were forced to leave, all of these experiences now show their true purpose as elements in the universe's elaborate preparation for this meeting. This synchronicity speaks to souls that have learned to listen. It is not available to those who remain trapped in the ego's narrow focus on control and predictability. Only those who have developed what Jung called the feeling function, the capacity to recognize meaning beyond mere causality, can perceive the profound orchestration that brings two prepared souls together. The universe's language of connection operates through what the ancients called sympathia, the recognition that all things are connected by invisible threads of meaning and purpose. When you have done the work of individuation, you become sensitive to these threads, able to feel the pull of destiny in what others might dismiss as random occurrence. You begin to understand that the universe is not a collection of separate, mechanistic parts but a living system of interconnected meaning. In the synchronicity of first meeting, you glimpse the profound intelligence that guides human connection. This intelligence operates not through the crude mechanisms of physical attraction or social compatibility, but through the subtle recognition of archetypal patterns and soul purposes. It brings together those who can serve each other's deepest evolution, those whose shadows and lights create the perfect conditions for mutual transformation. The meaning embedded in these synchronicities extends far beyond the personal. When two souls meet under such circumstances, they become conduits for the collective unconscious, channels through which the archetypal patterns of human relationship can be renewed and revitalized. Their connection serves not only their individual growth, but the evolution of human consciousness itself. As you stand in the aftermath of such a meeting, you realize that you have been witness to something sacred, a moment when the veil between the visible and invisible worlds grew thin, allowing the deeper patterns of existence to reveal themselves. The synchronicity that brought you together continues to operate in your relationship, creating a field of meaning that transforms ordinary interactions into opportunities for profound recognition. This is how the universe speaks to souls that are ready to hear, not through grand gestures or dramatic interventions, but through the subtle orchestration of meaningful coincidence. It whispers through the timing of encounters, through the resonance of shared experiences, through the mysterious way that two people can find each other across the vast landscape of human possibility. The synchronicity of first meeting becomes a touchstone for everything that follows, a reminder that your connection exists within a larger pattern of meaning that transcends your individual wills and desires. It establishes your relationship as a sacred space where the universe's intelligence can continue to operate, bringing you together again and again in moments of recognition, growth, and mutual awakening. In the sacred laboratory of human connection, there exists a phenomenon that transcends the boundaries of psychology and ventures into the realm of the purely archetypal. The moment when two souls, each having achieved a degree of individuation, recognize in each other not just intellectual compatibility or emotional resonance, but a profound energetic complementarity that speaks to the very fabric of existence itself. This is the alchemy of energetic fusion, the mysterious conjunctio that the medieval alchemists understood as the sacred marriage of opposites. It is the moment when the invisible fields that surround each human being, those subtle emanations of psychic energy that Jung called the psychic atmosphere, begin to interpenetrate and dance together in patterns of exquisite complexity and beauty. You have perhaps experienced glimpses of this phenomenon in lesser forms, the way certain people seem to energize or drain you, the inexplicable sense of harmony or discord you feel in another's presence, the way some encounters leave you feeling more yourself while others leave you feeling fragmented or depleted. But true energetic fusion is something far more profound than these common experiences of energetic exchange. When two individuated souls encounter each other in this deeper dimension, what occurs is not the merging of two incomplete halves seeking wholeness, but the recognition of two complete systems whose energetic signatures create, through their interaction, something entirely new and unprecedented. It is as if the universe has been waiting for these two particular constellations of consciousness to find each other, knowing that their union would birth possibilities that neither could achieve alone. The energetic field that emerges from this fusion is not a simple combination of two existing fields, but a third entity altogether, a living mandala of consciousness that encompasses both individual identities while transcending their limitations. In this field, the boundaries between self and other become permeable without disappearing entirely, allowing for a kind of communion that preserves individuality while enabling profound intimacy. This is the great paradox of energetic fusion. It requires two people who are already whole to create something greater than wholeness itself. The alchemical principle of conjunctio cannot occur between fragments seeking completion, but only between two complete systems whose interaction generates emergent properties that neither possessed independently. It is wholeness meeting wholeness to create super-wholeness. The recognition of energetic complementarity often occurs in moments of profound stillness, when the chattering mind falls silent and the deeper layers of consciousness can perceive the subtle patterns that connect all things. You might find yourself sitting in silence with another person, feeling a quality of presence that seems to expand beyond the boundaries of your individual awareness, as if you are both participating in a larger consciousness that encompasses you both. In these moments, the ordinary laws of energetic exchange, the way energy typically flows from one person to another in patterns of giving and receiving, are suspended. Instead, a circular flow is established, a dynamic equilibrium in which energy moves between the two participants in perfect reciprocity, each person simultaneously giving and receiving in a dance of mutual nourishment that seems to tap into an inexhaustible source. This energetic fusion manifests in countless subtle ways. You might find that your breathing naturally synchronizes with your partner's rhythm, or that you can sense their emotional states without any verbal communication. Colors might appear more vivid in their presence, or you might discover that creative insights flow more freely when you are together. The very air between you seems to shimmer with possibilities that exist only in the space of your connection. The alchemical transformation that occurs in energetic fusion affects both participants at the cellular level. It is as if the very atoms of your being are being rearranged to accommodate a new frequency of existence. Old patterns of thought and feeling that once seemed immutable begin to shift and evolve. Aspects of yourself that have been dormant for years suddenly spring to life, activated by the presence of this complementary consciousness. Yet this transformation does not occur through any loss of individual identity. Unlike the fusion of codependence, which dissolves boundaries in service of avoiding the terror of separateness, energetic fusion actually requires the maintenance of clear individual boundaries. It is precisely because each person remains fully themselves that the fusion can occur at all, two sovereign beings choosing to dance together rather than two fragments seeking to become one. The energetic field created by this fusion becomes a sacred space where the ordinary rules of psychology and relationship are transcended. In this field, conflict becomes a form of creative tension rather than destructive opposition. Differences are not problems to be solved, but complementary polarities that generate the very energy that sustains the connection. The masculine and feminine principles, the active and receptive, the conscious and unconscious, all these archetypal opposites find their perfect balance in the space between two energetically fused souls. This fusion also creates a unique form of protection and amplification. The energetic field that surrounds the two participants becomes a kind of sacred container that protects the connection from external interference while amplifying the transformative potential of their interaction. It is as if the universe recognizes the significance of what is occurring and provides special conditions for its unfolding. The alchemy of energetic fusion is not a state that can be achieved through technique or effort. It is a grace that occurs when two souls have done the necessary work of individuation and stand ready to participate in the mystery of conscious relationship. It cannot be forced or manufactured, only recognized and surrendered to when it appears. As you move through the experience of energetic fusion, you begin to understand that you are participating in something that serves not only your individual evolution, but the evolution of consciousness itself. The field that emerges from your connection becomes a laboratory for exploring new possibilities of human relationship, a space where the future of intimacy can be discovered and embodied. The energetic fusion transforms both participants into conduits for archetypal energies that are seeking expression in the world. Through your connection, ancient patterns of relationship are renewed and revitalized, while entirely new forms of human communion are being born. You become co-creators with the universe in the ongoing experiment of consciousness exploring itself through the medium of love. This is the ultimate gift of energetic fusion, the recognition that love is not merely a personal emotion but a cosmic force, a fundamental property of consciousness itself, seeking expression through the sacred marriage of individuated souls. In the ecstatic heights of profound connection, when two souls have tasted the nectar of energetic fusion and recognized their complementary wholeness, there emerges a seductive whisper from the depths of the unconscious, a siren call that promises the ultimate dissolution of all boundaries, the complete merger of two beings into one undifferentiated unity. This is the temptation of merger, perhaps the most dangerous shadow that haunts the landscape of deep intimacy. The ego, that part of the psyche that has spent a lifetime constructing and maintaining the boundaries of individual identity, paradoxically, becomes the very force that seeks to destroy them when confronted with the intoxicating possibility of complete union. It is as if the ego, having worked so hard to establish separateness, suddenly realizes the terrible burden of its isolation and seeks to escape into the blissful oblivion of merger. This temptation arrives disguised as the highest form of love. Wearing the mask of spiritual transcendence and ultimate intimacy, the ego whispers seductively that true love means the complete dissolution of self, that the highest form of connection requires the abandonment of individual identity in favor of a merged consciousness. It promises that in losing yourself completely, in another, you will finally escape the existential loneliness that has haunted human existence since the dawn of consciousness. But this promise is a profound deception, a shadow masquerading as light. The temptation of merger is not the call of love, but the cry of the wounded ego seeking to escape the responsibility of individuation. It is the regressive pull toward the undifferentiated state of the womb, where boundaries did not exist and, Consciousness had not yet awakened to its own nature. The crucial distinction between healthy union and destructive fusion lies not in the intensity of the connection, but in the preservation of individual sovereignty within the relationship. Healthy union is like a dance between two complete beings who choose to move together while maintaining their distinct rhythms and steps. Destructive fusion is like two dancers who become so entangled that they can no longer move at all, collapsing into a heap of confused limbs and lost identity. In the grip of merger temptation, you may find yourself wanting to share everything, not just your deepest thoughts and feelings, but your very consciousness itself. You may feel that any moment spent apart is a betrayal of the connection, that any thought or feeling not immediately shared is a form of withholding. The boundaries that once protected your individual identity begin to feel like barriers to love, obstacles to be dissolved rather than sacred containers to be honored. The shadow of codependence lurks behind this temptation, wearing the mask of devotion and ultimate intimacy. Codependence is not simply excessive attachment, but the systematic destruction of individual identity in service of maintaining connection. It is the unconscious agreement between two people to abandon their separate selves in favor of a merged identity that serves neither person's highest good. When two souls succumb to this temptation, they create what Jung might have called a participation mystique, an unconscious identification that dissolves the boundaries between self and other. In this state, each person loses the capacity to distinguish between their own thoughts, feelings, and desires and those of their partner. They become like two cells that have merged into one, losing their individual functions while gaining nothing of true value. The tragic irony of merger is that it destroys the very individuation that made the profound connection possible in the first place. The qualities that drew you to your partner, their unique perspective, their individual creativity, their sovereign presence, begin to disappear as they lose themselves in the merged identity. You find yourself relating not to a whole person, but to a reflection of yourself, a mirror that shows you only what you want to see. This dissolution of individual identity creates a feedback loop of mutual diminishment. As each person loses their distinct qualities, they have less to offer the relationship. The connection that once felt like a source of infinite possibility becomes a closed system, feeding only on itself until it eventually starves from lack of new input. The relationship becomes a psychological Ouroboros, a serpent devouring its own tail. The wise soul learns to recognize the temptation of merger for what it is, not the call of love, but the cry of the wounded ego seeking to escape. The beautiful burden of consciousness. True love does not require the dissolution of individual identity, but rather its full expression and celebration. It is the recognition that you can only truly love another to the degree that you have learned to love yourself as a complete, sovereign being. Dancing at the edge of oneness while maintaining the sacred tension of separateness requires tremendous consciousness and discipline. It means learning to tolerate the existential loneliness that is the price of individual consciousness, while simultaneously opening to the deepest possible intimacy. It means holding the paradox that you are both completely separate and eternally connected, both utterly alone and profoundly united. This sacred tension between union and separation is what generates the creative energy that sustains authentic relationship. Like the tension between the positive and negative poles of a battery, it is the difference between the two that creates the potential for energy to flow. When the poles merge, the battery goes dead. When two people maintain their individual sovereignty while choosing to connect, they create an inexhaustible source of creative potential. The temptation of merger often intensifies during periods of deep intimacy or crisis, when the ego feels most vulnerable and seeks the safety of dissolution. It is in these moments that the commitment to individual sovereignty becomes most important. You must learn to say, with love and clarity, I choose to be with you precisely because you are not me, because you bring something to this relationship that I cannot provide myself. This commitment to maintaining separateness within union is not a form of withholding but the highest form of love. It is the recognition that your partner deserves to be met by a whole person, not a fragment seeking completion. It is the understanding that true intimacy is not the absence of boundaries, but the conscious choice to open those boundaries to another sovereign being. The dance at the edge of oneness teaches you that love is not an emotion, but a practice. The ongoing discipline of choosing connection while maintaining individuality, of opening your heart while preserving your center, of diving deep into intimacy while keeping your own counsel. It is perhaps the most challenging and rewarding practice a human soul can undertake. In the sacred geography of profound connection, there exists a terrain that no soul can avoid, a landscape of necessary opposition where the very forces that brought two beings together begin to reveal their shadow aspects. This is the crucible of enantiodromia, the psychological law that Jung recognized as fundamental to all psychic processes. The inevitable swing of the pendulum from one extreme to its opposite, the mysterious way that every psychological position eventually constellates its contrary. When two souls have touched the heights of energetic fusion and tasted the nectar of perfect understanding, the unconscious begins its ancient work of balance and compensation. The very harmony that seems so complete and unshakable becomes the breeding ground for its opposite, conflict, misunderstanding, and the seemingly inexplicable emergence of shadow material that threatens to destroy everything that has been built. This is not a failure of the connection, but its deepest test. Enantiodromia in love is the universe's way of ensuring that no relationship remains static, that every profound connection must earn its depth through the willingness to encounter opposition. It is the sacred tension that prevents love through becoming mere comfort, that forces two souls to meet each other not just in their light, but in their complete fullness. The swing of the pendulum often arrives with shocking suddenness. One moment you are basking in the glow of perfect understanding, feeling as if you have found your spiritual twin, your missing half, your perfect complement. The next moment, the very person who seemed to understand you so completely becomes a stranger, their words cutting like knives, their presence triggering reactions you didn't know you possessed. This is the moment when the shadow of the relationship reveals itself, not the individual shadows you each carry, but the collective shadow that emerges from the interaction of two complete beings. When two whole people truly encounter each other, they create a field of tension that brings forth aspects of themselves that existed only in potential. The very completeness of each person becomes a mirror that reflects back the incompleteness, still hidden in the other. The crucible of enantiodromia tests whether your love is truly mature or merely a sophisticated form of narcissism. When your partner begins to express aspects of themselves that challenge your comfortable assumptions about who they are, when they cease to be the perfect mirror for your projected ideals, the relationship enters its most crucial phase. Can you love them when they are not who you thought they were? Can you remain connected when they trigger your deepest wounds? This opposition is not arbitrary, but archetypal. The masculine and feminine principles begin to assert themselves more strongly, creating tension between the active and receptive aspects of the relationship. The extroverted and introverted functions clash as each person's preferred way of processing experience comes into conflict with their partner's approach. The thinking and feeling functions struggle for dominance as logic and emotion offer contradictory guidance. In the fire of this opposition, you discover that your partner is not your complement, but your equal, not the missing piece that completes you, but another whole person whose completeness challenges your own. They have their own relationship with the unconscious, their own way of processing shadow material, their own individual journey of becoming. The comfortable fiction that you are perfectly matched begins to crumble, revealing the more complex truth of two sovereign beings attempting to create something together. The temptation during this phase is to retreat into the safety of earlier stages, to try to recreate the harmony that has been shattered, to smooth over the rough edges of opposition, to find a way back to the blissful unity that once seemed so natural. But this would be a betrayal of the relationship's deepest purpose. The opposition is not a problem to be solved, but a sacred tension to be embraced. Enantiodromia in love reveals that conflict is not the enemy of connection, but its greatest teacher. When two complete beings encounter each other's fullness, friction is inevitable. The question is not whether opposition will arise, but how consciously it will be navigated. Will it become destructive conflict that drives the partners apart? Or will it become sacred tension that deepens their capacity for authentic relationship? The wise soul learns to recognize the signs of enantiodromia and to meet them with consciousness rather than reactivity. When your partner begins to embody qualities that trigger your judgment or fear, you learn to ask not, "How can I change them?" but, "What is this bringing up in me?" When conflict arises, you learn to see it as sacred material rather than evidence of incompatibility. This is where the individual work of shadow integration becomes crucial to the health of the relationship. If you have not done the work of owning your projections, of recognizing how your own unconscious patterns influence your perceptions, you will inevitably try to make your partner responsible for your inner work. The opposition that emerges will be blamed on their failings, rather than recognized as the natural result of two complete psyches attempting to create something together. The crucible of enantiodromia also tests your commitment to the relationship's deeper purpose. When the going gets difficult, when the shadow material is thick and the conflict feels overwhelming, you must remember that you are not in this connection merely for personal happiness or comfort. You are participating in the universe's experiment in consciousness, using your relationship as a laboratory for exploring new possibilities of human intimacy. The sacred tensions that arise when two complete beings encounter each other's fullness are not obstacles to overcome, but materials to work with. Each conflict contains information about the relationship's growing edge. Each moment of opposition reveals an aspect of connection that has not yet been fully integrated. The relationship becomes a living mandala, constantly shifting and evolving as new tensions emerge and are resolved. In navigating these sacred tensions, you learn that love is not a state, but a practice, the ongoing discipline of choosing connection, even when it is difficult, of remaining open even when you want to close, of meeting your partner's fullness even when it challenges your own. You discover that the deepest intimacy is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of consciousness during conflict. The crucible of enantiodromia ultimately transforms both partners. Through the willingness to encounter opposition consciously, you develop capacities for relationship that you did not possess before. You learn to hold paradox, to embrace contradiction, to find unity not through the elimination of difference, but through the conscious integration of opposing forces. This is the gift of enantiodromia in love. It ensures that no relationship remains static, that every profound connection must earn its depth through the willingness to encounter the full spectrum of human experience together. There is a profound mystery that reveals itself only to those who have learned to love both solitude and communion with equal reverence. It is the paradox of the hermit's lantern. How the deepest capacity for union emerges not from the desperate clinging of incomplete souls, but from the sacred wholeness of two individuals who have each descended into their own darkness and emerged, carrying their own light. Listen carefully to this ancient wisdom, for it speaks against the fever dreams of our age. We have been taught to believe that love is the merging of two halves, the completion of what was broken, the filling of what was empty. But this is the language of the ego, hungry and grasping, seeking its own reflection in another's eyes. True love, the love that transforms and endures, requires something far more demanding and infinitely more beautiful. The courage to remain whole while choosing to share the journey. The hermit of the tarot walks alone through the darkness, his lantern held high, casting its steady glow upon the path ahead. He is not fleeing from connection, he is preparing for it. Every step taken in solitude is a step toward authentic relationship. Every moment of communion with his own depths is a gift he will one day offer to another soul brave enough to carry their own light. This is the great reversal that Jung understood so deeply, that individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, is not a selfish withdrawal from the world, but the most generous gift we can offer to it. When two people meet having each undertaken this sacred work of self-discovery, something extraordinary occurs. They do not lose themselves in each other. They find themselves more fully through the mirror of conscious love. Consider the ancient image of two flames. When brought together, they do not extinguish each other's light. They create a brightness that illuminates far more than either could alone. Yet each flame maintains its own essential nature, its own source of fuel, its own relationship with the air that feeds it. This is the alchemical marriage Jung spoke of, not the dissolution of boundaries, but the conscious choice to dance at the edge where two mysteries meet. The hermit's path within union demands that we hold two truths simultaneously, that we are complete unto ourselves, and that we are designed for connection. These are not contradictory facts, but complementary aspects of the human condition. The person who has never learned to be alone will bring desperation to relationship, seeking in the other what they have not found within themselves. The person who has never learned to truly connect will carry their completeness like a fortress, impenetrable and ultimately sterile. But there is a third way, the way of the conscious lover who has descended into their own underworld and emerged, with treasures for the shared journey. This person brings to relationship not neediness but abundance, not emptiness but fullness, seeking its own echo in another's depths. They understand that true intimacy is not the collapse of boundaries, but the conscious choice to make those boundaries permeable, to allow the beloved to witness the full spectrum of their being without losing touch with their own essential nature. The hermit's lantern represents this hard-won wisdom. It is lit not by external fires, but by the inner flame of self-knowledge. It casts light not just for the one who carries it, but for all who travel the same dark path. When two such lantern-bearers meet, they create a constellation of understanding that guides others toward their own illumination. This is why the greatest lovers are also the greatest solitaries. They have learned that the capacity for deep connection is directly proportional to the capacity for meaningful solitude. They do not flee from their own company into the arms of another. They bring the riches of their inner dialogue to the sacred conversation, ion of relationship. They understand that the beloved cannot complete them because they are already complete, and from this completeness they offer the gift of their choosing. The hermit's path within union requires us to resist the gravitational pull of codependency, that subtle form of spiritual laziness that seeks to shortcut the work of individuation by merging with another's journey. It asks us to remain committed to our own growth, even when love makes us want to dissolve into comfortable unconsciousness. It demands that we continue to ask the difficult questions, to face our own shadows, to listen to our own dreams, even when the beloved's presence makes such work seem unnecessary. This is the deepest form of love, not the love that seeks to possess or be possessed, but the love that chooses to remain awake, to continue growing, to offer the gift of one's own becoming to another soul, equally committed to their own transformation. It is the love that understands that the most sacred thing we can give another is not our dependency, but our independence consciously chosen in service of something greater than either of us alone. The hermit's lantern burns steadily through all seasons of relationship, through the initial intoxication of recognition, through the difficult passages of projection and withdrawal, through the patient work of seeing and being seen. It reminds us that we are each responsible for our own light, our own truth, our own journey toward wholeness. And paradoxically, it is precisely this responsibility that makes true union possible. When two people meet in this way, each carrying their own lantern, each committed to their own path, each willing to share the journey without abandoning their own essential nature, they create something that transcends the sum of their individual lights. They become co-conspirators in the great work of consciousness, fellow travelers on the path of awakening, mirrors that reflect not just what is, but what is possible when love serves not the ego's hunger, but the soul's deepest purpose. There exists a sacred threshold that only the most conscious lovers dare to cross. The moment when their union becomes something more than personal happiness, more than private fulfillment, more than the sweet refuge of two souls finding shelter in each other's arms. It is the moment when love reveals its deepest secret, that it is not merely a feeling between two people, but a cosmic force seeking to know itself through the vessel of conscious relationship. Jung called this the transcendent function, that mysterious bridge between what we know and what we do not know, between the civilized face we show the world and the wild wisdom that moves in our depths. When two souls maintain their authentic connection through both light and shadow, when they refuse to turn away from each other's darkness or blind themselves to each other's brilliance, they activate this sacred function and become something unprecedented, a living laboratory for the evolution of consciousness itself. This is love's most radical invitation, not simply to be happy together, but to become conscious together. Not merely to find comfort in each other's presence, but to use that presence as a catalyst for the deepest forms of psychological and spiritual transformation. When two people accept this invitation, their relationship becomes a sacred vessel, a crucible in which the raw materials of human experience are refined into something approaching wisdom. The transcendent function operates through paradox and tension. It thrives in the spaces between opposites, between masculine and feminine, between order and chaos, between known and unknown. In conscious relationship, these tensions do not tear the lovers apart, but weave them into something stronger and more beautiful than either could become alone. Each partner becomes both mirror and mystery to the other, reflecting back not just who they are, but who they are becoming. Consider the ancient alchemical understanding of the sacred marriage, not the sentimental joining of two incomplete halves, but the conscious union of two complete beings who choose to create a third thing, a transcendent reality that belongs neither to one nor the other, but to the space between them. This third thing is not a child, though it may manifest as new life. It is not a project, though it may create works of beauty and meaning. It is consciousness itself, awakening to its own nature through the friction and flow of two souls committed to truth. The transcendent function of love reveals itself in those moments when the personal becomes transpersonal, when the individual story opens onto the archetypal drama that plays out in every human heart. The lovers recognize that their struggles are not merely their own, but echo the great themes that have moved through human consciousness since time began. Their jealousy connects them to the primal fear of abandonment. Their passion links them to the creative fire that moves the stars. Their tender moments of understanding become windows into the very nature of compassion itself. This is why Jung insisted that individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, is never a purely personal affair. We individuate not for ourselves alone, but for the whole of humanity. When two people love each other with this kind of consciousness, they become agents of evolution, midwives to the birth of new possibilities in the human psyche. Their love becomes a gift to the collective unconscious, a healing balm for the wounds that divide us from ourselves and each other. The transcendent function operates through what Jung called enantiodromia, the tendency of any psychological extreme to transform into its opposite. In conscious relationship, this means that the deepest conflicts often carry within them the seeds of the greatest breakthroughs. The very qualities that most frustrate us in our beloved may be precisely what we need to activate our own dormant potentials. The shadow material that threatens to destroy the relationship may be exactly the medicine required for its deepest healing. This is love's greatest challenge and its most profound gift, the invitation to see our partner not as the source of our happiness or the cause of our suffering, but as the sacred mirror in which we discover aspects of ourselves we never knew existed. Every trigger becomes a teacher, every conflict a doorway, every moment of authentic connection a glimpse into the nature of unity itself. The lovers who accept this invitation discover that their relationship becomes a living mandala, a sacred circle in which all the scattered fragments of their psyches can find their proper place. They learn to hold space not just for each other's light, but for each other's darkness, not just for each other's strengths, but for each other's wounds. They become skilled archaeologists of the soul, helping each other unearth the buried treasures of their own depths. In this way, their love becomes a service to something greater than themselves, a conscious offering to the evolution of love itself. They understand that every moment of authentic connection between two human beings strengthens the web of consciousness that connects all beings. Every act of genuine forgiveness heals not just their own relationship, but the very capacity for forgiveness in the world. Every breakthrough in understanding becomes a gift to all lovers who will follow. There is a moment in every authentic spiritual journey when the seeker realizes that all the seeking, all the yearning, all the elaborate maps of transformation have led to the most startling discovery of all. They have arrived exactly where they began, but now they know the place for the first time. This is the great paradox of the eternal return, that the deepest journey outward into the mystery of another soul ultimately leads us back to the mystery of our own essential nature, but transformed, enriched, made luminous by the sacred encounter. The Ouroboros, that ancient symbol of the serpent consuming its own tail, speaks to this profound truth. The cycle is complete, yet it is never finished. Each ending is a beginning, each return a departure, each moment of recognition a doorway into deeper unknowing. In the alchemy of conscious love, we discover that the ultimate gift is not the loss of self in another, but the finding of self through the sacred mirror of true intimacy. This return to self is not a regression, but a revolution, a complete turning that reveals the familiar landscape of our own being from an entirely new vantage point. The person who emerges from the crucible of authentic relationship is the same person who entered it, yet utterly transformed. They carry within them now the imprint of having been truly seen, truly known, truly loved, not in spite of their shadows, but because of their wholeness. The sacred mirror of deep connection reflects back to us not just who we are, but who we have always been beneath the layers of conditioning, beneath the masks of the persona, beneath the projections and defenses that have kept us hidden even from ourselves. In the eyes of one who loves us with consciousness, we catch glimpses of our own divine nature, not the inflated divinity of the ego, but the humble radiance of the soul that has learned to love itself through loving another. This is the deepest teaching of relationship, that we cannot truly give what we do not possess, cannot love another more deeply than we love ourselves, cannot see in the beloved qualities that do not already exist in seed form within our own being. The lover who awakens our compassion is reflecting back to us our own capacity for tenderness. The partner who challenges us to grow is mirroring our own readiness for transformation. The soul who sees our beauty is showing us what we have always carried but never dared to claim. The eternal return to self through relationship is like the spiral path up a mountain. Each revolution brings us to a higher level of the same fundamental truth. We discover that the love we thought we found in another was actually the love we brought to the encounter. The peace we experienced in their presence was the peace we created by dropping our defenses. The joy we felt in their company was the joy of our own nature, finally free to express itself without apology. This recognition does not diminish the reality of the connection or reduce the beloved to mere projection. Rather, it reveals the true miracle of conscious love, that two complete beings can choose to share their completeness, creating something that honors both their individual wholeness and their sacred union. The return to self through relationship is not a solitary journey, but a shared awakening, a mutual recognition of the divine spark that animates all authentic love. Jung understood this profound truth when he wrote about the individuation process. The goal is not to become something other than what we are, but to become fully what we have always been, to integrate the scattered fragments of our psyche into a cohesive whole, to embrace both our light and our shadow, to stand in the center of our own being with courage and compassion. Relationship, when entered with consciousness, becomes one of the most powerful catalysts for this integration. The beloved becomes our teacher, our mirror, our sacred opponent in the great work of becoming whole. They show us our blind spots, not to wound us, but to heal us. They trigger our deepest fears, not to torment us, but to liberate us. They reflect back our greatest beauty, not to flatter us, but to remind us of who we truly are beneath all the stories we tell ourselves about our inadequacy. In the end, the eternal return to self through relationship reveals that love is not something we fall into, but something we rise into. It is not a loss of identity, but a recovery of identity. It is not an escape from the work of individuation, but its most profound expression. When we love another with consciousness, we are not seeking completion outside ourselves, but sharing the completion we have found within ourselves. The Ouroboros completes its cycle and begins again, forever consuming and creating itself, forever ending and beginning, forever returning to the source that it has never truly left. In the sacred mirror of conscious love, we too complete our cycle, not by losing ourselves in another, but by finding ourselves more fully through the grace of being truly seen, truly known, truly loved, for exactly who we are and who we are becoming.